Hi guys, in the name of Christ, how you doing? It's your girl, Cranky. I hope you're good. I am not okay. Yeah, I'm actually going through quite a lot spiritually. I'm always under attack, and never mind under attack, but my life is just hard. So because my life is as hard as it is, any spiritual war going on just gets that much more difficult. It gets that much more exacerbated, and there are events unfolding that I don't really know how to deal with because I am busy trying to get my life back, and I feel as if though I don't have time, and I need to try and biblically rational reason my way into a better place so that I can rest easy with decisions that I am making. So my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer about a year and a half ago, and it has apparently gotten really bad now, and I haven't gone to see him. I only went once because my mom kind of dragged me along, and that one time was for me kind of the final straw. Now you're probably like, Krabo, what in the world? Well, I'm gonna give you context. Okay, so long story short, so I was born in 1984 on the 8th of August within a marriage between my parents, but at the time that I was born they were going through it. The marriage was shaky and divorce became an inevitability. I was conceived during a ridiculous time in their marriage, like, you know, one of those, I mean, he's your husband, he's in your bed, so I guess you're gonna sleep with him, but really and truly, if it was up to you, you'd be living separate lives. And then in the middle of that sexual encounter, boom, a child gets conceived. So basically in the middle of a lot of war between the two of them, I sort of kind of became a zygote. Lord have mercy on me while I tell somewhat of the story. I'm trying not to be too long-winding or long, so I'm gonna get to the point. Now, as a result of me being conceived in this terrible time in their marriage, my mother got accused of because they were barely having sex, like, at all, but I just so happened to be conceived the one time when they decided to. My father then accused her of having an affair, and the baby was not his. She was inside a marriage, she had no history of cheating, but my dad was a prolific narcissist, and so whenever they do something really wicked, they always, due to guilt coming to play, because we're not children of God, not all of us are children of God, but we are made in the image of God, meaning that we have a conscience, we're able to think rationally through things, and so every so often when we pull bad stunts, like I'm feeling right now, we feel guilty. So the way that the narcissist or the inward focused person thinks when they're guilty is, I need to make myself feel better, put a band-aid on this cancer by projecting my ridiculousness on another person. So basically they blame others for their random insanity, okay? The very person that made them feel guilty, they try to find a reason as to why they had to do what they did to her or him. And so, you know, they kind of make it true that this person is wrong. Kind of like the tantamount of saying to a woman after you've beaten her up as a man, but why did you make me do this to you? Why do you make me why do you provoke me? Why do you make my hand have a life on its own, and just slap you? Okay, so did you just blame me for putting a blue eye on my face? I guess that's what's going on, right? That's the narcissist. I'm a Christian, not a psychologist, so I don't want to get deep into narcissistic personality disorder and many such things. There are plenty life coaches on the internet that can talk to you about narcissists. I'm coming to you guys from a biblical vantage point, so I don't even want to use any medical terms or whether or not they've been even put on medical journals as such. I ain't no life coach. I'm a Christian. I'm a disciple of the Lord Jesus Christ, and I'm trying to reach people for Jesus. But this is a language that the world understands, so I'm trying to bring them in to help them find healing from this issue in a very scriptural way so they can find true healing as opposed to some patchwork diagnosis of some dude or chick in the world. Okay. My dad, like a typical inward-focused guy, accused my mom of infidelity, and that became basically the torment or the bane of her existence throughout the pregnancy. She was accused of cheating, and they were always at war, and this accusation caused my mom and him. Basically, I was just an unwanted, you know, when you are an unwanted baby born inside a marriage, it's like, can life get even worse? There are so many unwanted teenage pregnancies out there that bring strain in the baby on the inside of the belly because nobody tried to fall pregnant. So many unwanted grown adult pregnancies that they nonetheless take to term, and this puts strain on the baby. But I mean, you should not be finding anything like this inside a marriage. I mean, you got married so you can go and like pop them babies, you know what I mean? And I am the second born and last born in their marriage, so basically they were not even having like 10,000 other kids running around, and so it was very strenuous for the mom and the dad to have a new child. They were not going through any financial difficulties either. There was really nothing at all in this marriage that made for reasonable sense as to why I would have been a difficult pregnancy. I ought to have been a bundle of joy, something that made them very happy, because we're making our family, we're building it, we're making it bigger and bigger. I was also 2 years younger. I'm also 2.5 years younger than my little sister, so let's just round it off to the nearest year. 3 years younger than my older sister. So I mean, it's the right kind of time to be having a second child if you've gotten married. 3-year gap is healthy. A 2-year gap is, you don't want your kids to be too far apart in age. So basically, I was born at the right time. On top of that, my mom was nice and fertile. She was in her 20s. She had me when she was 26. My older sister when she was 24. Well, just under 24. At 23.5, more or less. So she had her pregnancies at the perfect time to have pregnancies, at least according to medical doctors, according to biology. That is really like the best, within the range of the best time that a woman should be conceiving. So nothing should have really been a problem in this situation. They were married, their kids were born inside a marriage, they were not going through financial difficulties, they had a beautiful home. My dad was a successful lawyer, my mom was en route getting her degree, she was studying, but it didn't matter because my dad was providing. So it's not like she was struggling a job and a school and all that. She wasn't juggling violently. But that's just the thing about being married to like literally the worst man under heaven. It doesn't matter how much your material circumstances look great, and how your marriage from the outside looks like the perfect thing that ever happened. But if this person is just the bane of your existence and is really horrible, he's going to make you feel like trash. And my mom used to be sweet. Well, that kind of flew out the window. I don't even recognize her anymore because of years of build-up, of trauma, of ridiculous mistreatment, of bad friendships, bad whatnot. And now at the age of 62, turning 63 just a couple of days from now, she's basically a horrible woman. She's become a monster. She's like a gorgon. She's like Medusa. Anyway, whatever. I should have brought some tissue to blow my nose because I'm all sniffly now, thanks to the winter weather and the jalapenos in my coffee. I've got Cajun peppers, not Cajun, cayenne in my coffee for health benefits. Hey, shout out to the cayenne. Those of you who are interested, it makes for great like mixing in the coffee if you don't like that, if you don't mind that spicy zest. Anyway, that was a little bit of a health lesson in the middle of this very taboo, dark topic. And so because it's taboo and dark, we need every so often some icebreakers in the middle. And mine was cayenne pepper. Now let's get back to the story. My mom, oh goodness gracious, I just, guys, I want to, because I want to sniff all up in your grill for like 10,000 years. So I'm just going to go grab some tissue, blow my nose, and then come back and finish this discussion. Hey, wish I had actual facial towels, but I don't because I'm broke, because I don't have a life anymore. So we're rolling around with a roll of toilet paper, just in case my nose gets running again while I'm chatting, because I am after all drinking some peppers. Anyway, I didn't close the gate behind there and I'm insecure about how open it is, but we're just going to try and ignore it because there's nobody actually coming in. I need to try and get this information out before the sun sets because, I like my daylight hours. I should have actually come here earlier, but I wasn't planning on chatting today. But this thing has been sitting on my brain, on my heart so heavy that I just had to get something out. So here it is. Marriage conditions really lackluster. Everything was kind of gangster. My dad was a prolific cheat. Not only was he a prolific cheat, but he was not even a kind cheat, a nice cheat. Not that it's okay to cheat, but there are men that cheat on their wives, but they still come back and they buy them flowers. They treat them well. They are basically serving. However, they cannot keep themselves in a bunch. Not that they're okay, they basically suck, all of them, but there is a grander, loftier level of sucking that exists out there, and my dad was that. He was mean, he was horrible. Thankfully he was a scrawny little man who was kind of skinny, so not one of those buff muscular gym guys, so he could not quite get away with physical abuse, even though he did try. But he was rich here. He was rich in vitriol, just like finger pointing, downsizing, just tearing up a person's spirit. My mom had to kind of take that all in. She was this naive little 22-year-old when they got married, and that when you get married to a guy at 22, having not really seen some flames in this world, or rather my mom did actually see some flames, but not that kind of level of flames, you get confused when you get married to like a lackluster random fool. You think this is how life is supposed to be. You think this is how marriage is. I remember one time her saying, long ago, I overheard this conversation when I was a teenager, saying that in the beginning of her marriage with my dad, she used to ask her friends, is marriage supposed to be like this? I thought it was normal because she got into it and was shown flames. So essentially my dad was really great and romancing. He was finessing my mom in ways that were basically, how about you give me a fever right now? And then they got married and he became like a dark monster. That's just the thing about narcissistic people. But you know, this is not about narcissistic personality disorder, because frankly, I'm not trying to throw psychological terms here. I'm a gospel servant. Let's just talk about the selfishness that dwells inside of mankind, written off in 2 Timothy 3. Men will be lovers of themselves, and then lovers of money, boastful, proud, blasphemous. Yeah, my dad had all these character flaws, and my mom, having come into this as a very sweet girl, got out of it kind of gangster, and she just continued to decline from there because she never gave her life to the Lord. Anyway, whatever. Right, so Lord have a lot of mercy on me as I give this lackluster story. Frankly, I'm sick and tired of having to come to talk about it over and over again. It's like I'm self-therapying, but you know, it is what it is. Some people have not heard it before, so let's just like talk again now that the guy's dying. Okay, right, so herein lies the narcissistic personality disorder, causing my mom to feel like a bag of dust, and in so feeling that way, therefore came upon her crouching like a beast, postpartum depression or prepartum depression, pretty much a depressing pregnancy, like an unwanted pregnancy, like whatever it is that goes through your body as a woman, and when you're carrying a new human being, a whole body like of mass inside you that you don't want, you want to get rid of it, or you are gonna send it for adoption. You don't really love the baby, you don't care very much for the baby in your stomach, but it's there. And I mean, they were married, and abortion was not even an option. They were not godly, so they didn't think pro-life, pro-choice. In the black community, abortion is like, you know, like in a marriage, it's like, what are you doing? Like, no, yes, funny little things like those just don't easily happen, especially when you're married, especially in those days. So if you felt pregnant, just, you know, go pop that baby, have it type setup thing. And so I wasn't gotten rid of. I don't know how many times I've said to God, I didn't really pray this prayer, I just spoke, like in conversation with God. I was like, why didn't you just miscarry me? Why didn't you just allow, like, just make my mom do some kind of a backstreet abortion? In other words, I'm basically asking a very taboo thing to God. Why did you not make a woman sin against you so you could set me free, that I might be raised in heaven like all the babies that get miscarried and aborted? I have gone to the Lord so many times with my life, the way that it has worked out, the way that it has come to the place that we're at now today, having this conversation. I'm like, I'm not even living, I'm not even alive, like I'm just breathing, I'm a body of mass, I'm a body of tissue, just a clump of cells walking the earth. Like, they have, like, the contribution to my total and general demise has been brought into this space by 2 individuals that made out of me a zygote. They came together and they conceived me, literally my parents. That's all, you know, like, it's just like a sob story. So let's just get right to the point that it might feel more like an inspirational thing as opposed to a sob story. We're gonna get to the point that is inspiring ultimately, because I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to get people to know Jesus and realize that you're not a clump or body of cells, and the pro-choice movement is therefore dumb to imagine you are. Anyway, so I apologize if the wind is like where you're at. I like recording from outside because of lighting conditions, so I'm gonna try and speak above the wind when it starts to like blow all up in your grill, going Anyway, righto, so my mother had a horrible pregnancy, even though she had a pregnancy within the most ideal conditions within which to have a pregnancy, and therefore she hated the pregnancy, did not abort the baby, carried to term. It was like, you know, her stomach just kept on growing all these 9 months, and people were like, oh, you're pregnant, and she was like, yeah, it feels more like a cancer, like a tumor that is in front of my belly, like inside my stomach, just growing, but it's gonna get out eventually. And the reason why my mom's pregnancy was terrible was because my dad would not stop mocking, jeering, jesting at her. All different kinds of obscenities, frankly. Vitriol was through the roof, skyrocketing, climbing to the heights of Mount Everest and beyond, making like the Tower of Babel. And by the grace of God, that speech was confounded, but I mean, not before my life could be made into a living nightmare because of those 2 random buffoons called my parents. Anyway, whatever. You know, my mom wasn't a buffoon first, but she ultimately became one. I'm trying to help you guys understand just what role deadbeat men play in making women monstrous, frankly. Anyway, so herein lies the lady taking the pregnancy to term. My grandmother, by the amazing grace of God, still lived, and so too did other females in the community that saw me as a beautiful thing that was a bouncing bundle of joy. And so I was largely raised in the beginning stages of my life by others, touched, loved, you know. We all know, according to psychology textbooks out there and child neurology, whatever, that if a baby does not get held and loved and coddled and all that jazz, when it's like brand spanking new out of the belly, it can die. Literally, just from like touching it, it can die. So if you try to intravenously feed a baby with machines and robots, it will die, because we are meant to grow from affection, love, adoration, acceptance by our ecosystem, our environments. Like, believe it or not, God made things that way. So I nearly died, essentially, just putting that out there. If I didn't have my grandmother, the lady from down the road, the lady from the other like hood in the Kasi there in Soweto, like just a few people that were like, oh, cranky, you're cute. Except at the time I was just Karabo, because I came up with like a nickname later on in life. Okay, cool. So my mother had not only a terrible pregnancy, but she also then, after having this pregnancy, sadly suffered from what we call postpartum depression. My dad not only jeered and jested at my mom, but he went on to diss her, tease her for... My mother never had a single stretch mark on her bum. I don't know, the food we eat today is bringing stretch marks on the younger generation of women. But our moms, if you look at them, their pregnancy bellies are stellar. Like, after they gave birth, they just bounced right back. And their bums also, despite them getting larger because of puberty, they just did not get those stretch marks. It's the food. I can't tell that enough. Anyway, whatever. So my mom's body was basically perfect until she had my very last sister, my baby sister, who is a half sister. She never had any like funny issues on her body. She was perfect. And my little sister, the only reason she got all of these things on her body was because she was already a much older woman by then. My little sister was born 17 whole years after me, 16 and a half whole years after me. And so my mom was already not consuming all of this preservative-filled, ridiculous, random food that we're picking off the FMCGs, and these days it's going awry too, because we're not finding it on the shelves because of food shortages across the world. Anyway, so many issues. She was eating all this random ridiculous food, no longer village food, no longer Rustenburg food, no longer meager woman food, or let me rather say simple life food. She started eating GMO, you know, before even GMO was innovated. Thanks, Bill Gates, you've put like stretch marks on our bums. Anyway, therefore her body was like pert. It was perfect after the 2 pregnancies, which was me and my older sister, and then it only started getting blemished and whatnot after my last sister was born, meaning that this lackluster random buffoon called my dad, jumping up and down on the spot like a beach ball. Sorry, I'm stopping because I'm thinking that I'm being interrupted, and indeed I am. There is a vehicle arriving, and I'm kind of hoping it's not hers, because I just want to get this message out without being interrupted. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay, cool. So this giant beach ball sized buffoon, like bouncing up and down, went on and called her fat and ugly and all different kinds of vitriolic statements during her pregnancy. I mean, it reminded me of the world's harassment of Kim Kardashian when she was pregnant. What do you expect a woman to do? Kind of stay skinny? Like, literally have this funny little lollipop head looking bump in front of you when nothing else spreads? It's a pregnancy. If you're not gaining weight everywhere, you're weird. Your body is strange. You don't have body fat composition across your body. Whatever. But I'm just trying to highlight just the impact of a horrific man. I'm trying to highlight that, okay? In the life of a woman, ultimately, like the general overall course of a woman's life and what they have power to do in her, and why it is imperative to wait on the Lord for really like a godly man, and why it is imperative to be studious in and of yourself as a Christian woman, to know what makes for a disciple, that you won't just marry some random lackluster dude rocking up out here speaking Christianese. Just because he can quote scripture or he calls himself Christian does not make him Christian. Anyway, whatever. Righto, so my mother was brought into an ecosystem that is frankly quite toxic with this man who dissed her perfect body throughout pregnancy. Not a single stretch mark, bounced right back. Body even recovered as soon as she gave birth, but during the pregnancy she kind of looked whalish. In other words, kind of like a whale, because that's what we look like when we're pregnant. Like, yeah, it happens that way. We get fatter, our cheeks kind of round up. Anyway, whatever. She was dissed and teased. So confidence like plummeted. My mom was one of the biggest and baddest baddies in the street out here, you know? Like, she was beautiful. On the come up, you know, one of them, you know, like in the black community, colorism has always been a thing, and my mama was a yellow bone. I came out a little bit darker combination of her complexion and my dad's. So I guess I know what it's like to suffer from colorism, but my mom was one of those, I want to pounce on her first because she's a yellow bone. And so this dude had like a yellow bone that had perfect skin, bounce back pregnancies, not a single stretch mark. Every dude wanted her, and then because he was a narcissist that was frankly deep down inside low-key insecure, hated her because she was so loved by other people and other men. Anyway, whatever. So that caused a whole bunch of postpartum depression. and my mother, meaning that I was one of those babies that really like was like nya 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 crying, and the mother was like, oh, you're loud. Thank God she did not snap my neck, but at the same time I'm like, maybe you should have snapped it because I would have gone to heaven. But you know, when you just end up hating your life because you wish you were never born, and it's like, I didn't ask for this, I didn't ask for this, but you're here, and the Lord said do everything without grumbling, so I'm trying not to, even though it's kind of tough. All right, postpartum depression made sure that my mom did not pay much attention to me, and also when I came out, because the bane of her existence kept on mocking her throughout the pregnancy, that being my dad, when I came out looking like him, more so did it pile on to the existential crisis that I was in. It made my life worse because I looked like the fool. So my dad admitted, he acknowledged that can't be anybody else's, it's mine, because literally I came out like a carbon copy. If you think I'm pretty, thank you. Where girls get to look like men and still be beautiful. So my dad was a handsome man, but it doesn't matter if you're a handsome man, if you're a fool, a buffoon, a gangster, a monster, just a menacing beast. If your name is Dennis and you're a menace, ew. I don't care that you're fly, you're hot, you're tall, you've got this beautiful study body, you're intelligent, you're a lawyer. What? So what? Lawyer schmoyer. Okay? Yeah, my dad had all these like street credit, he had these credentials, like, you know, kind of like rolling off him like paper on your hand. Kind of man, that today is called high value. You know, these high value men that because they have strong careers and are building their own, and they're wearing the kikembebwas at their wag and pinstripe suits or polka dot suits in office, in corporate, and they've got offices that are in a corner that cause colleagues on the ground and females in the office to grovel at the boss's feet. Men like those, they're called high value men, and they're not all wicked, they're not all just senseless out here in these streets, but there is a portion of them that because they've gotten where they got, they imagine that thanks to making money they don't need to have manners, they don't have to have character, they can forget what grandmama taught them, what mama taught them, what even uncle in the community taught them. They think they can forget where they come from, their roots, and so they're just harsh to women, like ridiculously harsh. It's almost as though they're taking out all the rejections that they endured back when they were in school and still scrawny, nobody was looking at them because they had no money, and all the girls that teased them and chose older guys that were in university because we're all in high school and you don't have money, mama gives you an allowance, but the university guys have got cars. Yeah, it's like they're taking out all that bitterness from high school rejection now that they're making money on women, so they treat women like trash, almost as if they're like, if I can give you money, I don't have to have manners. Shame. I feel sorry for these ladies who want these men like no man's business, these high value randos. They're only high value insofar as you look at value on a worldly platform, a barometer that is very earthly, very ungodly. They're high value because they've got money, but my goodness, what a lackluster random fool walking around. If anything, they're lackluster in terms of value. They're low, they're meager, they're minuscule, they are nothing, they're worthless when it comes to character, and that is the worst kind of man that you can ever get. A man with money that thinks that because of it he doesn't have to build moral virtue. My dad was one of those. He was a guy with insecurities. He had some issues with daddy, issues with mommy, did not quite deal with them, did not quite go to Christ for real, even though he claimed to love the Lord. And so therefore, being as insecure and a pipsqueak as he is, when he then scoops the baddest chick in the community, in the village, in the town, he was like, yay, I bagged her, I get to be the guy that everybody celebrates because I won my trophy wife, but then treated her like rubbish because he never really worked on character to earn a woman like that. He never really got trained by God how to love a woman like that. The woman in the community that every man wants, that fights like a dog, hunts to get, he got her, and he never got trained how to treat her. As if though her trauma in her childhood was not enough. That's another story for another day. If anything, I've told it in another video, so I shall hopefully like kind of attach link that video to this one. Anyhow, and like forever, my dad was a pipsqueak, even though he was gargantuan materially, and he admitted to being my dad. So he was kind and sweet to me, loving, however still very mean and lackluster to my mom. It got proven that she didn't cheat on him and so therefore have a baby by some other dude, because I came out looking like a carbon copy of him. Now because my mom was endured through all that rubbish by him, she looked at me on some, you look like the fool that has made me a bereft woman for 9 months. Well, make that all the marriage season. And so I just never got any like joy from her. He never stopped cheating, he never stopped harassing her, he never stopped being lackluster and random, okay? Cool beans and banana peels, and I'm just like, whoa, but I'm a baby, wah, look, like I can't even speak, and yet you like pulling all your frustrations on me. What's going on? That was my life. And so I guess as a baby I never really knew what it was like to be loved, except thank God I got held by someone. My grandmother ultimately became my aunt, and then it became some lady from the community. Literally I was raised by the village, thank God, hallelujah, praise the Lord for the black community around me at the time, because if it wasn't for them I wouldn't be breathing right now. Except I'm like, I wish you didn't take care of me, because people have made me one of those melancholic people that want to die all the time, but I can't die because I fear God too much. What in the world is going on? Anyway, whatever. Right, so You know, it's really sad when a woman is so glorious and all she is just depressed all the time. It's just such a turn off. But I don't care, because this is my life and this is a story, and I am real. I'm a human being, a proper, thorough, fully fledged human being that gets to speak of her experiences and therefore show people that, look, it does not always go easy for people who have all this intelligence, all this beauty, all that. It gets real rough sometimes, to a point where the pretty girl is hard to be around because she's freaking traumatized. Anyway, whatever. So herein lies the situation where my mom has got PTSD or post-traumatic stress. What I wanted to say, well, it could be PTSD, but what I wanted to say rather was yeah, what's that thing, guys, with the baby being hurt by the mom? Postpartum depression. Yeah, she had that. And my dad, in the middle of all that postpartum depression, was kind and sweet, and has always had been, at least up until that point, kind and sweet to my sister and I. My sister and I had a dad that was loving, you know, daddy and his girls. Idiot. No, like, man, I'm sorry. Like, you know what? I'm a Christian woman, and so therefore I'm not supposed to be preaching to men. My message is essentially for women, to help them avoid random red flags that they think because we're all young, they don't matter. But I know that men come to listen to my ministry, even though I'm not allowed to teach men. But let me just kind of highlight this to the men that are here. Lord have mercy, gauge and understand thoroughly with every bone in your body, men, that loving your daughters while you absolutely resent the womb from which they popped does not make you and somewhat an okay and acceptable guy. You are a hypocrite on that day. You are lackluster. Frankly, you should just disappear from the face of the earth. Somebody should like zip open some portal, you jump into it and then zip it back up again, and you just kind of be stranded in isolation in some other dimension, because right here on earth you're hurtful. You're really very hurtful. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to watch these men who love their daughters and yet hate their baby mamas. What in the world? She endured 9 months to bring this baby into the world, and even though you might pay child support or whatever random rubbish it is that you're doing, at the end of the day, you are destructive towards the very thing that this little girl is going to one day become. There is some like karma, like infused random thing that's gonna come in like lamp-based, like a big fat asteroid from outer space. Your daughter, because of what you were. I don't believe in karma. I believe in you reap what you sow. I'm a Christian. And so men, if you abuse your baby mamas, your wives, the women that pop them babies, the women that raise them human beings, your daughters that you love like a fat kid loves cake, are gonna endure the same random lackluster fool in a younger generation. So if you care for your daughters, how about you stop being hypocrites? If you love your daughters, love your baby mamas, whether or not you're with them. Moving on. So my dad loved me and my older sister, at least for the formative years of our lives. He was one of those, you know, if you see me, call me the friend of children. Kids love my dad. Like, I got that trait from him. I inherited it from my dad. I'm big with babies. Like, I'm so good with kids. They're good with me. We gel. We jam. You know what I mean? We vibe. Me and children, we vibe. We vibe. They come to me like a whole crush, and I'm like mama hen. I don't know. It's a gift. It's an anointing. It's a blessing. It's a thing. You get my point. So I took it from my dad. We were like bees to honey around my dad as kids growing up. Me and my cousins and any other like random child in the community. The kind of like older man to be buying all the kiddies like snackies, and when he comes over, they run to his car. That was my dad. Like big with children, turned big with him. But like, who cares if you've got that gift if you suck with women? They come from women, these children. You can't be that big of a hypocrite. Anyway, whatever. So my daddy, in the beginning stages of our youth, because really he did at some point become a typical deadbeat random thing, because he was trying to take out his anger on my mom, and so he became a deadbeat dad. Oh, guys, like, that is why men. I met this fool. He tried to rape me. It did not quite work out for him, because I don't know, I'm stronger than him. I pushed him off and he landed with a thud on the floor. But like this fool that nearly invested himself in me by force. We were friends prior to that. And this fool had a daughter, a baby mama, a brand spanking new daughter that could have been like 19 months really at the oldest. And he was having issues with his baby mama. He used to show me a whole bunch of photos of his daughter all the time on the phone, because he was in love. He was besotted, you know, with his kid. He loved his child. So I was like, oh, cute baby, look at that girl. Oh, man. So this man loved his daughter, but then he was having this like flagrant war. There was like this inferno in his relationship with his baby mama. And so because the baby mama was like, you're not gonna see your daughter, he was like, fine, whatever. And he came and told me that, you know what, I keep on giving this woman money every month. I deposit this much into her account. I'm just gonna stop. I'm like, are you serious? This guy knew my dad, and I was like, dude, you see that man over there? Look how lackluster he's looking. Look at how much he's been ravished by alcohol and a bad life. Look at him in his old age looking all gangster. You're him. You're him. Look at how proud you are to have a daughter, and you're showing me all of the photos on your phone. And then because you have a war with your baby mama, you're then gonna go and take it out on the kid. Like literally, they punish their girlfriends, their baby mamas, their wives, ex-wives, whatever it might be, by not being there for the kids, because it's very straining for the lady in question that has given birth to these children to raise them on her own. And so if at all you can strain her further, narcissism, not only narcissism but selfishness, greed, and spite. That's the word I was looking for. Spite. Because of spite. You know when they say you like cut off your nose to spite your face? Random lackluster like thievery of that nature. These men, they have this thing that they do where they punish the women in question by not being there for the children because they want her to be a single mom that is bitter, upset, and I'm not angry, I'm mad as hell type diary of a mad black woman. What a fool. What a prolific buffoon. Okay? Yeah. So you let go of the daughter that is the apple of your eye that looks like you. A lot of times they look like these men, right? These girls, these little girls, daughters that come out looking like daddy. They're the ones daddy is usually most proud of initially, and then they fight with baby mama, bite baby's mama's cheek off, and then they're like, you know what? I'm not gonna pay child support. And the kid is like, but dad, I love you. Shh. It's not about you, daughter. It's about your mom. But I am collateral damage. Anyway, whatever. So my dad ultimately became a deadbeat dad because he was trying to take it out on my mom. But while they were married, because they got divorced when I was like 5 years old, right? So their marriage was in total like 8 years long. He was available and there and very loving and very daddy-like, you know, throwing you in the sky and catching you type dad. Yeah, buying you tutu dresses, the way that he was just so always considerate of you. Yeah, type dad. So I loved my dad in the beginning stages. My sister loved my dad. We loved our dad. The kids, all of them in the community, my cousins, loved my dad. He was that dude that was good with them children. So if then you're gonna hate the living daylights out of your beautiful wife, however, love your beautiful wife's children, you know what happens on that day? Do you know? Do you want me to get like just kind of put information out in your general grill? Yeah, your beautiful full wife starts to have it in real bad, gnashing her teeth, growling and everything, being all vampiric, gnarling, pouncing, maybe even like a beast against the babies. She gets mean, she gets envious, jealous of the affection that this man has over her, especially his daughters, because they're women, they're females. And so therefore they become some kind of like strange mommy like jealousy. Mommy jealousy over little girl. Little girl has all the affection that daddy ain't giving her. So my mom not only resented that I looked like the beast that was wreaking havoc in her life with postpartum depression and vitriol throughout pregnancy, she also resented that this man, after denying that I was his, once he realized that I was his, because I mean, you know, carbon copy, he then went on right ahead to treat me beautifully. He like threw me around in the room and just be like, oh, you cute, no. And my mom was like, you didn't even think she was yours, you fool. And so I became on the receiving end of my mom's random wrath against my dad. And I became the most suffering child from her narcissistic personality disorder. Hate using that word because really it's not mine to use. I ended up becoming the daughter that the mom envies the most. My little sister was born during a better time, literally not a little older, in their marriage because they just newly gotten married, you know, like romantic phase, honeymoon, that's what they call it, phase of the marriage. And so my mom didn't have not PTSD, but postpartum, that too, illness in her with my older sister. So basically the favoritism that my mom has over my older sister against me started from that random like root. Like, men, you are responsible for all the trauma in the family. I kid you not. You're supposed to be the heads. You're not running the show properly, so you like cut off your neck, become like that random big chunky guy in Despicable Me, and because you don't have a neck to move you around, you're like robotic and you don't know where to look. Your direction is thwarted all throughout life, and so visionless are you. You end up a lackluster bum in the end, but not before wreaking a lot of heartbreak havoc in the lives of females first that you encounter. You mow us down to the ground. You're like kanda. You just like trample under us, eh? Serpent you. Stop. Anyway, let me get back to the story. Remember, my dad loved us. And however, not my mom. Continued to cheat, not only cheat, but mock her, diss her, tease her. Now that her body had bounced back after pregnancy, he didn't have that to use, but I bet he found other things with which to throw random vitriol into her environment. Okay, right-o. So then, of course, they ended up getting divorced, and my mom was, I guess, smart enough to not go and have a third baby. Like, continue to sleep with a guy that's gonna just continue to impregnate you, and so you're just gonna continue to have these babies that you don't like. So I was the last one born in that marriage. Got divorced at the age of 5. My mom and him divorced when I was 5. Mom was in her early 30s, right? Like 31 or something, whatever. Okay, cool. Lord have mercy. Like, what in the world is going on? Like, I kid you not, I'm gonna pull out hairs. Okay, let's try not to do that. after they got divorced, that's when my dad took out all of his beef on my mom by not taking care, never mind of my older sister, but me too, right? But my mom favored my older sister more than me, so my older sister got the affection that she needed. That is when I started getting raised by all different kinds of random people. My mom stuck with my sister and carried her around everywhere like she was a purse, but I was the extra thing. Oh goodness, I was exhausting. Do you know that I wouldn't have started school on time if my grandmother wasn't like, but the kid is sitting here? My grandmother told my mom, you better take this kid to school, otherwise she's gonna start school a year late. And indeed I did start a year late, but thankfully at the time in Soweto they were sending children to school literally 2 years before time, right? So because kids were going to school at like the age of like 4 or 5 or something, because they just wanted to the parents wanted to get rid of them, take them off their hands, I was never behind in terms of my grades in school, but I would have been, because my cousin, I have this cousin that was my best friend in the family. She was born 1984 just like me. We were supposed to start school at the same time. She is the daughter of my uncle, who is my mom's brother, and in the beginning of our lives, my uncle and my mom, basically my grandmother's children, lived on the same property, Mara, but in the back rooms of her house. So basically I grew up in the same sort of kind of environment with my cousins. My grandmother's back house, the rooms there, the same house. Therefore my mom had an example to use, to emulate. She could look at my uncle and his wife and be like, oh, you're sending your child that was born in the same year as my child to school, so I guess I must send my child to school. But instead I was just sitting there gathering dust like a blob. And my grandmother looked around at this. Thank God I was not raised in a separate household, because my parents endured financial difficulties, because my dad was irresponsible, so he kept on losing his law practices and all that jazz. So they once upon a time moved into my grandmother's house, but like I said, a back room at the back of my grandmother's house. If it wasn't for that, guys, I would have started school at like some strange age, like 9, 8, actually. What? Thankfully there was somebody looking at me. If I was just in the same house as a depressed mom, she would have just watched me. Lord have mercy. That's why I wish I was never born. Anyway, my grandmother was like, the kid is turning 5. What is she doing here? Hey? Like, I'm busy making lunches for all of these other of your children, of my grandchildren, except for this one, because that one is not going to school. Hey, take that child to school. So my mom was like, oh, okay, mom, to her own mother. She was like, okay, mom. And then I got registered in a school 1 year after my cousin, who's my exact age, went to school. So my cousin and I, there was a time when we were in different grades, but she failed one grade in the beginning stages of her primary school. So like, who fails primary school? Anyway, that's the same cousin that broke my heart. It makes sense why she would have bewitched the living daylights out of my life, because I mean, really, like, if you fail primary, what's going on there? She failed primary, so that one grade, I think it was like grade 2 or some stupid grade. Like, she prospered to fail a grade that low. Anyway, and so I caught up. I was in the same class as her, and so that's how we grew up in the same grades. And then when we moved to English schools, because you know apartheid was repealed, we now could go to these like multiracial schools. They, because our English was kind of not yet developed, then brought us even further, 1 grade down. So when I moved to an English school, I was then brought 1 grade down, meaning that I was 18 when 18-year-olds were 18, 16 when 16-year-olds were 16 in the same grade. If I had gone to school on time, I would have essentially been behind 1 grade, as in my peers would have been 1 year younger than me, but I was exactly the same age as everybody, because our parents in the black community just used to throw us into schools, primary schools, really early, because they wanted to get us off their hands. It was very difficult. School was like a creche that they didn't have to worry about, type establishment thing. Anyway, whatever. So that's what happened. But I'm telling you the story because I want you to understand just the level of negligence that comes with bad daddying, like bad dads, what it is that they cause moms to do to their children. When you abuse a woman, what ends up happening to her with your kids, type thing. My mom had neglected me. My grandmother thankfully then forced her to take me to school, and then I was raised from that point by a myriad of other people. Like, she just threw me away to like my aunt raised me for a couple of years. This one lady that was my grandmother's best friend, she wasn't even family, took me in because she liked children. And so her daughters and her were really good to me, and they raised me. I was very happy in that household. My grandmother also allowed them to take me in because my grandmother was given children, so many of them to raise. And so when they were like, we'll take her, my grandma was like, okay, fine, you can have her. So yeah, I was ping-ponged like that. And all throughout all of my ping-ponging, my older sister was right by my mom. I mean, that stuff will really get to you as a kid, guys. It will, you know, you notice it. I mean, you could be really little, and so therefore people think you don't notice the bias, but it was there. Thankfully though, my older sister was not mean or horrible to me or had a sense of entitlement or grandiosity above me. She was actually quite loving, and so it did not create any bitterness in us at all. Growing up, we were actually quite tight, we loved each other, and then she turned her back on me much later on in life. But I attribute that to spiritual war. I became a Christian, so I'm being persecuted. From now on, a man's enemies will be members of their own household. My older sister turned her back on me when I turned to Christ, because she got involved in some funny stuff, and so our spirits don't gel anymore. But in the run-up to me coming to Jesus, my sister was my biggest mascot, my biggest fan. So I'm not too mad at her, because this is a spiritual war, and I'm trying to like get her rescued for Jesus, that she might stop her insanity, because I remember that she had my back. She was more my mom than my mom was, right? So I really gotta continue to give my older sister credit, because she made my upbringing so much easier. Whatever my mom would funnel into her, she would funnel down to me. She gave me what was hers. It was like, so yours is mine. She gave me her clothes, she gave me her money, she bought me birthday presents and birthday cakes when my mom forgot or didn't. Like, she was basically my mother, okay? And she was only a tiny little 2 years older than me, so that level of maturity in a child, like, kudos, good looking out. And that's why I'm so prayerful that my older sister should come to Christ, because she don't deserve no hellfire, man. She raised me, gave me a second chance. Anyway, whatever. So that is what was good. Type establishment thing. And so I then grew up kind of feeling rejected. However, because my older sister was this like great genius, she's like cool, like light bulb moments all along. Number one in school, she got noticed, she got headhunted, and so ended up living in Italy at the age of like 15 or 16 or something, meaning that I was left with my mom, just me, you know, before she had another child. And so I then became nomadic with my mom. I became my mom's purse. Like, my older sister left, so she's been replacing me. My mom knows how to replace. She knows how to replace human beings, eh? You can go and take a person and be like, oh, okay, you are in the slot of this person, as if though I don't have my own spirit, soul, and everything. Yeah, so I basically got given some kind of attachment to my mom only because my older sister, thanks to a big fat brains, got seen by people that like giving young gifted kids scholarships. So my older sister went to Italy to go study there. That whole United World College of the Adriatic that was started by Nelson Mandela, blah blah blah. My sister got a scholarship there, so she left. And I love that she left, because I used to get designer clothes every time she'd come home. Anyway, that was why it is that I was such a fashionable teenager, because of my sister. But people thought that I was a spoiled brat. I told you, she raised me, gave me a second chance. Anyway, whatever. So I was a suture to my mom. But you see, when you've got postpartum depression that you don't overcome, you don't recover from, you don't go see somebody about it, it literally continues into the child's upbringing. As she gets older and older, becomes a teenager, and then a young adult, you still have got that beef with your own child if you don't conquer it with therapy. Like, I kid you not, somebody gotta diagnose that stuff. But if they don't, whoops. And I mean, black community back in the day, don't nobody do therapy there anyway. So she never got healed for it, meaning that she was still essentially really bitter, horrific. As I grew up, growing into my body, I looked more and more like my dad. And this time around, he wasn't paying child maintenance because he was trying to get at my mom, and he was also absent. Like, years would progress without us seeing him. Whatever, do you, dude? Okay. So I was basically just being dragged along. I was like a tail on my mom's back. I mean, if you're a tail on the back of an animal, you're part of the fixture, you're part of the whole animal, but the animal is not going to go on right ahead and pay extra attention to you since you're like back there or whatever. Much like a lizard's tail, if it got chopped off, whoops, I guess we'll grow another one. So I was just kind of being dragged along life with my mom. I wasn't actually cared for. I wasn't catered to. I wasn't loved the way that a kid needs love. I was just dragged along. So I got to be the purse that my mom carries, but one that she doesn't really care for, like it's a bird, like it's a Gucci or whatever. My sister was cared for. I wasn't. If it wasn't for my older sister, I don't know where I'd be, right? So I basically was a hard-knock independent, and I was intelligent too, just like my sister, just not the one that gets discovered. Helping me also bring forward to you guys the fact that children who are gifted, if at all they are born to horrific parents, nobody's gonna know. You could have a protege in your house. Like, she could be a little Beethoven walking around, bit of a Mozart, about to hook up some great notes. Could be a little bit of a Picasso, about to draw some funny little caricature of a painting. Really gifted, absolutely beside themselves with star quality. Could be a little bit of a, give me some modern day musician that really can hit those ridiculous notes. A bit of a Sam Smith. Yeah, your kid could have that level of talent. That level of ingenuity, intelligence could be the kind of stuff that neurobiologists are made out of. But if at all they've got a horrible dad and a horrible mom, parents that are not into even noticing that, my goodness, your kid is smart. Like, when teachers keep on saying your child is very gifted, and the mom is like, okay. I don't know how many teachers told my mom that your kid is so intelligent but she's lazy. Because you see, I had no motivation. I had no motivation to move, to strive. I used to rock up at school and just merely glide by the day and pass, right? And teachers were like, do you know what your kid can do if only she pulled her weight. If it was not for my own decision that I made when I got to grade 9 in high school that I'm gonna start to pull my socks up, I would have just looked like an average student. I ended up looking like indeed one of those intelligent, clever academic kids, only because I was like, you know what, just because my mama don't care, just because my mama don't care about my report card, doesn't mean I need to not care about my future. I started to want more for myself, and so I worked hard, and so people got to know that Karaba was intelligent, right? So I basically had the same level of genius or intelligence, giftedness as my older sister, but because I was a child that endured postpartum depression from her parents, was born at that horrible time in the marriage, nobody knew that I was gifted. No, like not knew, they didn't care. My mom was told, guys, she was told by so many teachers, but she like was whatever. So nobody invested in me. Nobody took time to actually like see, like I should have been like my sister in terms of all of my scholarships and whatnot, but I had nobody rooting for me. My dad was gone now because he was no longer like that happy dad that makes that, you know, throws you up and down in the sky. He was no longer around because he was busy taking out his anger on my mom, and on top of that he became an alcoholic, so he lost lots of everything of his life. Cool. That was what was good, and so I basically raised myself. I was very mature. Thank God I was one of those kids that were mysterious because I was a deep thinker. I was very INFJ. That's my personality type. But if you did the Myers-Briggs personality test, I would come out having done that test as an INFJ. So I had a very rich inner life, and so because I was very mature and very thinky, I was very full of thought, very G. The world was a kaleidoscope of colors, and I was always taking them in and coming up with some kind of a Rubik's cube out of them. I therefore was very mature inwardly, very, very mature inwardly, meaning that I basically knew that it is irresponsible of me to allow myself to be a victim of my own circumstance. I cannot let my mom's indiscretions ruin my future. I wanted a future, and I, from a very early age, got my act together alone with no motivation. I got my own act together. When I matured, when I got to high school, I was like, I want an act, so I'm gonna go get it. And that's exactly what I did. And that's how I ended up qualifying for things like university. That's how I ended up with a very strong career in corporate, all that jazz, right? I built myself, I basically raised myself, I basically matured. I should have been one of those kids that, because mama, you don't care about me, I'm gonna go take drugs, but I was like, I know who I am, I know I'm special, I don't need drugs, I'm addicted to life. There was a drug advert back in the day like that in this country. Anyway, fine. So thank God for that. And that thing in me was God. I later came to find out that that was God.